Hello Year 3. Now next week we are going to be creating this dragon eye picture using coloured pencil techniques. So that means that this week, to start off our dragon topic, we are going to learn how to use different coloured pencil techniques, and this is an example of what we're going to do. So today you will need your coloured pencils, and they should be nice and sharp. You'll also need a pencil sharpener, as the pencils wear down very quickly when you're doing this work. You need a normal writing pencil, a marker pen, or just a biro or a pencil even. You don't actually need a marker pen, and of course your sketchbook. So let's get started. Turn to the next clean page in your sketchbook, and the first thing I want you to do is just to fold your page in half and then open it out, and you're going to split the page into 4. So one line across the middle, then a line in between that line at the top, and a line in between at the bottom. So you have 4 equal sections, okay? And in the first box we're going to learn a technique called back and forth light pressure. So at the top of your page, can you write back and forth light pressure? Now this is the technique that we use the most when using coloured pencils, and it's really important to get this right. I've seen so many people just scribble when they use coloured pencils, and you don't want to do that. When you're using light pressure, you want to move your hand slightly up the pencil, and you're going to make sure you colour evenly so the marks are the same all the way across. And can you see there are no gaps in my colouring? So I've just done a small section at a time, and then I'm going to move underneath and do the next section. Now when we work in a little box at a time like this, we call it the ladder technique, because you're colouring a little bit at a time and then moving on. And I'm going to keep moving on a little bit, do a little bit at a time, making sure there are no gaps and that my pencil is moving in one direction. Okay, and you can see that I'm using a light pressure on the pencil. It's not really dark. Okay, so you can fill that box with a light pressure back and forth. And this, as I say, is the most common way of colouring using a coloured pencil. Okay, in the next box, you're going to do back and forth again, but you're going to do heavy pressure. Now for this, you're going to use exactly the same technique, but move your hand a little bit closer to the top of the pencil, and then you're just going to do exactly the same, but pressing much harder with your pencil. And this is the same colour, but you can see the difference in what happens on the page. And you can see I'm using the ladder effect again. I'm doing a section by section, working down the page. Okay? Nice and firmly. And this uses your coloured pencil very quickly, so that's why you need to have your coloured pencil sharpener on hand. Okay, so I'll leave you to continue that. So we've done back and forth light pressure, back and forth heavy pressure. I'm just going to sharpen my pencil before I move on. It's very important to keep your pencil nice and sharp. And then I'm going to try gradation. And in fact, I think I'm going to use, I'm going to put my gradation heading here. Now you can just write these titles in pencil, you don't need to write them in pen. Now gradation is when you gradually go from very dark all the way to very light. So I'm going to start by pressing really hard on the page, as hard as I can, and then I'm gradually going to release the pressure on the pencil so it gets lighter and lighter. Can you see the difference as I move along? Okay, you may want to have another go underneath, starting off very dark, as dark as you can make the colour, and then gradually, remember, no gaps in your colouring, moving in one direction, gradually getting lighter and lighter. And that's what we call gradation. Okay, now the next step, the next technique is called burnishing. Now for this you need your coloured pencil, so I'm going to stick with blue, and you also need a white pencil. Now when you do burnishing, you start off by doing gradation. So you start from very dark and then gradually getting lighter and lighter. So this is gradation, as I showed you in the last section. But with burnishing, what you do is you then add white colouring pencil on top, and this blends and smooths the colour out. Okay, it makes it blend together. Whoops, lucky I kept my pencil sharpener here. So you keep going and it blends the colour together. Just like if you were to use your finger to blend the colour in and to smudge it a little bit. That's what your white pencil does over the top of the coloured pencil. Okay, now our next section, remember you can use a pencil to write these headings. Our next section is hatching. Now in year 2, you had a look at this in my class. So with hatching, you're just doing lines across the page. And they can be close together or they can be wide apart. But hatching is when we add lines to colour an area. And you might want to, if you like, choose another colour and add some different lines in between. But instead of colouring fully, like here where we're doing back and forth, we're just using lines to give an effect. Okay? Hatching. And then from hatching, we move on to cross hatching. And again, we did this in year 2, year 3. We did cross hatching is when you make lines in one direction and then lines in the other direction to make lots of little crosses. And if you remember, this technique is really good for doing shading, and we've used it in our work to show shading before. Okay, you might want to try in another colour, but it's excellent for shading. Okay, so we have back and forth light pressure, heavy pressure, gradation, burnishing, hatching, cross hatching, and now we're going to try layering. Now before I do this again, I'm going to sharpen my pencil, keep it nice and sharp. Layering is just when we add 2 different colours on top of each other. So I'm going to start off with my dark colour. I'm going to do a section of blue right across the page, and again I'm using the ladder technique where I'm doing one section and then moving on to the next section, making sure the colour is even and then there are no gaps in the colouring. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to colour over the top in a different colour, a lighter colour, and you can see that the two colours blend together. Okay, and then you might want to make a square of different colours joining up, or a rectangle. So you're layering the two colours together. I'm using my ladder technique. I'm ensuring there are no gaps in my colouring. And then last, I'm going to do one more section. Green. Now if I mix green and blue, can you remember what colour you make? What about green and red? Okay, there we go. So this is layering. Okay, and the last technique we're going to learn is gradation, so which we've looked at before, but using two colours. Now we looked at gradation, we know that gradation is when we get gradually darker. We start dark and we get gradually lighter. So here I go, I'm going to gradate this blue colour, starting off really dark and then getting gradually lighter and lighter. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is from this end, I'm going to do exactly the same but in the opposite direction. So I start dark and I get lighter and lighter as I go through, and the two colours gradually mix together. Okay, there we are. Okay, so there are year 3, 8 different coloured pencil techniques that next week in our lesson we are going to use to create an Eye of the Dragon picture. Good luck, year 3.